Um, I am, as was said, my name is Savannah, and I do run the Weave program. So one thing I wanted to address at the start of this is that I do tend to speak very quickly, and I'm working on slowing it down. So if I start to speak too quickly and you're like, whoa, that's too fast, please let me know, and I will do my best to reduce speed. Due to the nature of this presentation, I may talk about things that may make you uncomfortable or are triggering, because we will be discussing topics such as domestic violence and sexual assault. And I just want to remind you to take care of yourself first. If you need to leave the webinar, please leave. Do not make yourself uncomfortable. Before we get into exactly what Weave is, I have a short video for us. Oh, no. I do apologize, as the video does not currently have closed captioning as an option.
My name is Sheila McHugh. I have two sisters and then my dog named Charlie. Charlie, you're fine. Shut. There. Yeah, no, I got too much stuff. Yeah, this one, Medea. This one. She's my favorite actor. Disability means I was born with it, but I'm shaming everybody else out there just because I have disability. Doesn't mean I'm different. When I was in my 20s, I found a job. I like to bag customers' groceries. How you doing today, ma'am? Because I get to interact with them. I met somebody and I started like talking to him and getting to know him. I invited him to come over here to meet my roommates and my sister. Started going okay in the beginning, and then he started like taking advantage of me, and he started like trying to force sex. I wouldn't say nothing. I just like pretend it didn't happen and I didn't say to nobody. Didn't know what to do. And shut it down.
Individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities are sexually abused far more likely than you might think. And perpetrators are attracted to vulnerable people. I mean, they simply are. Part of their vulnerability is that, so you have a very popular guy who starts hitting on a child who has some significant challenges, and nobody believes her if something happens.
Sometimes the perpetration is not just about somebody having a sexual attraction to whoever they're assaulting, but rather it's about the attraction of being in a position of power and control.
I wasn't like happy. I was always mad and angry. Really didn't talk much to people. And then eventually I was like, okay, I gotta turn around. I gotta be more positive. Max might be out in the barn. No, there's Max right there in the back. That's Max. Hi, you guys. I'm so happy we have this weather. Hello, how you doing? Oh, you nan-act. Okay, you're gonna meet the oldest horse here. His name's Shiloh, but he's beautiful. Shiloh. I take care of about 5 horses. Okay. It helps. You're right. It calms people down. If you're sad, they'll know and they come up and help. Okay, Shiloh, you're beautiful. You ready? Get groomed? Yes, you are.
People with developmental disabilities are open, they are honest, they have a gift for being vulnerable. But also, the more vulnerable we are, the more people can take advantage of us. I have had phone call after phone call with families who have been so bruised because of the situations that their children have been in. It is simply heartbreaking, and it is totally preventable.
Ultimately, the YWCA would like to eliminate sexual violence. So the Weave collaboration began because the YWCA was interested in looking at who we were not serving as well as who we were serving. And we saw that there was a clear gap for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We continued to look at who else should we be bringing to the table to help us understand the issues and so that we contribute to the conversation. Ultimately, we made a decision that we would be working with 4 agencies. We would like to change social norms so that sexual violence isn't so easily accomplished.
I am so grateful for the work that the YW is doing, that you've identified that people with developmental disabilities are valuable, that they need to be educated, that they need to be protected.
One of the reasons that I do this work is because I'm passionate about the people that we serve, and I'm also passionate about making sure that everybody has a voice and that that voice is heard.
Hey, you guys coming in here? Like watch TV or something? Okay. My life's really better. I have a lot of support. I have friends. I have a lot of good staff. I'm more outgoing. I like to go out, have fun. These aren't the Arabians, they're big.
Have you ridden any of them?
No. Actually, no. Look, hey. I got you. Look. Come on, Layla. Let's get in here. Come. And keep your halter on, because you're gonna get ridden. All I've been through made me the person I'm in now. Come on, baby girl. I know. I fight for other people so they don't get hurt and they don't get picked on.
What would you say to people in the audience?
I tell people, go out and have fun. Just be yourself. Don't let them put you down. Just be a person.
Okay. So that video was made a little before my time. So there are 2 things that I would like to address that the video says. The first is that one of the individuals they are talking to implies that sexual assault is not always about attraction. And I don't like that wording because I want to iterate that every sexual assault is about power and control and not about attraction. And that might have just been a misspeak, but I just want to clarify. I also do not like the use of the word protect When it comes to this work in regards to individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, this course is about self-advocacy and education. So what is WEAVE? WEAVE is a healthy relationships and sex education course for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, with the overarching goal of ensuring that everyone has agency. Through the understanding of not only what makes a healthy relationship, but also understanding our own bodies and personal relationship to sex and sexuality. Weave was created with 4 other organizations in Grand Rapids, including MOCA, Spectrum Community Services, Thresholds, and Hope Network Developmental and Community Services. In addition to these organizations, Pine Rest, Public and Family Guardians, and individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities participated in the creating of WEAVE. I currently have an individual named Brooke, who is one of my peer facilitators. Brooke not only serves on a couple of boards in disability organizations in Grand Rapids, but also was one of the first participants in the WEAVE course itself and had a decent amount to do with the way it's currently run. I have made some recent edits to the course just to update it and make sure that it is as appropriate as possible for the current situation that we are in. And one of the things that I've been doing with that is to continue to try and ensure that both of my peer facilitators know that their voice is more important throughout the course of these edits than mine. As I mentioned, WEAVE was created as a way to empower and give agency back to individuals with IDD. One of the biggest forms of agency and human dignity that we have is over our own bodies. What goes on them, what goes in them, who is allowed to touch them, how we deal with sickness. Having that agency taken away is a form of violence. This is especially true for individuals with IDD who often have to deal with less agency in their own bodies due to physical disabilities and the systemic limitations that go along with that, societal stigmas surrounding their bodies, and even overprotective caregiving. Research suggests that people who have intellectual and developmental disabilities are anywhere from 4 to 5 times more likely to be victims of sexual assault within their lifetime, with 80% of women being assaulted at some point in their lives and 30% of men. As with all sexual assault statistics, it is important to remember that these numbers may be underreported due to the fact that many people do not report sexual assault. And this number could be higher due to the fact that many individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities are not provided with appropriate relationship or sex education. This means that the individual might not even realize that they have been assaulted in the first place to report it. Some of the reasons individuals with IDD are more at risk include that they are often segregated from society at large, They are more likely to live in environments with more people, such as AFC homes. They're often taught to be compliant with the requests of caregivers. And leading into my next point, are often denied critical information about their bodies and their sexuality. Okay. You do not have to answer this question out loud or in the chat, although I would really love it if you did. There's no pressure because I know it can feel awkward. But what was your sex education like? I'm going to go first, hoping that that will make everyone a little more comfortable and maybe some people are willing to share. But I personally had a class in 5th grade where a question was asked if a penis could get stuck in a vagina, or as it was written on the note card from the 5th grader, can it get stuck? I remember the facilitator of the class becoming a bit uncomfortable and then telling us that this could never happen. I went home and told my mom about the question because I thought it was silly and funny. I was blessed with a mom who was not only a nurse, but a staunch believer that everyone should understand their own bodies and sex, meaning that she explained to me that while rare, there was in fact a chance that a penis could get stuck in a vagina. And this left me with a bit of a distrust for school sex education. So I would always bring anything we spoke about in our sex education classes to her to figure out if I had been told the truth. We had a few chats, or one chat. The 5th grade talk, getting a book called Where Did I Come From? I hear that a lot. A lot of people just get like a book from their parents and just like push it off on the book. Someone said in the chat there was a nonprofit that would go to schools to present on sex ed, and this was done for various grade levels, which is pretty cool. I have not heard that one before. People have told me to learn about sex by watching farm animals. That is an interesting one. My older best friend told his girlfriend to teach me how to kiss, which does happen, and definitely is not super appropriate. But I feel like, situations, especially with children, I feel like I found out stuff on the internet with my friends before our schools had a chance to educate us properly, which is really true. I feel like a lot of people find out things from the internet or do their own research, which is both empowering, but also, depending on what websites you use, can be a problem because there might not be you might come across information that is not accurate or could lead to some inappropriate situations. Pledging abstinence was our sex ed. It's something I hear a lot as well, especially in more religious schools. Give it a couple more seconds to see if anyone else is going to respond. I can't remember what I was taught. I learned in 5th grade as well, but my mother educated me, which is really exciting because, as we'll discuss in a couple of minutes, a lot of sex ed, there are many states that allow for an opt-out situation, so the parent can opt their child out of sex ed with the intention that the parents will then teach the children about sex ed, but that often does not happen because usually when people are being signed out of it, it is because the parents are uncomfortable with their children becoming educated in any way. Give it a couple more seconds. Thank you to everyone that has shared so far. I remember we attended Robert Crown in 5th grade and then had sex ed in high school health ed class. I'm not sure what Robert Crown is. I'm gonna write that down because now I'm curious. Yeah. Some schools have sex ed or health class in multiple grade levels, and sometimes it's just the one grade level. It just depends on where you went to high school and what the laws of this, or school in general, and what the laws of the state are. Catholic school, 5th grade. Yeah. Introduced to pornography at 7 health class in 6th grade. Like the teacher? Robert Crown is like a health center that elementary schools go to for field trips. They focus on puberty and sex ed stuff. Oh, that is really cool. I did not know about that. I will have to look into that. Not the teacher, 7 years old, and then health class in 6th grade. Okay. 7 is very young to be introduced to pornography, and I'm sorry. Okay. We got a decent amount of answers from a lot of different situations, which I appreciate. I am glad. I really appreciate everyone engaging in that question. I know it can be an uncomfortable one, but it is truly one of my favorite questions to ask people, just because I get a lot of really interesting answers. And that is part of why I am very passionate about this topic. So now that we know each other a little bit better, let's talk about statewide sex education requirements. While these requirements may be different than when you were in school, the current requirements for Illinois sex education are as follows. There is no requirement to teach sex education courses in school, which is more common than you would think. If the school does choose to teach sex education, it is required to include instruction that is age and developmentally appropriate, medically accurate, complete, culturally appropriate, inclusive, trauma-informed, and replicates evidence-based or evidence-informed programs. It is also required to include information on orientation, sexual orientation, and gender identity. I do believe from the research that I did as well that Illinois has an overarching curriculum guide, which is not true of every state. While as of 2013, it is no longer a requirement that abstinence is taught as being the norm in sex ed, and school boards have to include both abstinence and birth control as potential sexual paths. There is a requirement that sexual intercourse hazards, which is what the law says, must be spoken about, such as birth control failure rates. There must be instruction on consent and alternatives to abortion, as well as AIDS and HIV education. And as I mentioned, Illinois is one of the states where there is an opt-out policy where children can be removed from any or all sex education at the behest of their parent or guardian. I'm also going to talk about Michigan laws just because that's where I live. But like I said, there is no overarching rule or law about what sex ed should look like for different states. So sex education is different from state to state and even county to county. But in Michigan, the requirements are somewhat similar, with some of the most notable differences being that there is no requirement for instruction on sexuality and gender. There is no instruction on consent, just refusal skills. And while they also have HIV/AIDS required education that must be medically accurate, there is no set standard for medical accuracy, unlike Illinois, in sex education in Michigan. Another big difference is that abortion is not to be discussed at all, and schools risk losing money from the state if they break this law. Another big thing that I always like to bring up is that school boards in Michigan must include parents, students, educators, health professionals, and clergy, which is a really great separation of church and state, to review their sex education curricula for the county, for the school district. There are currently 30 states that require sex education, but there are 36 states that do not mention youth with disability in their sex education requirements at all, which means that the education that they do get is most likely not accessible or inclusive. While Illinois does have laws surrounding sex education for individuals with IDD, it is on an adult level, which is part of what Leave aims to do. Leave works to bridge this gap by providing individuals with the tools they need to advocate for themselves. This includes covering a myriad of topics, such as trust and safety, where we go over how to know if someone is a safe person, through attempting to distinguish actions that a trustworthy person would do versus an unsafe person. During this, we also go over a safety plan where participants are asked to identify one or two people who are safe and places that are safe. There is an emphasis on picking people and places that one might go to or see regularly. So while a firefighter might be a safe person in an emergency, they are not a safe person to be there to help you with your feelings. We also talk about how not everyone considers family to be safe, and that family has the ability to break and lose trust as well. We cover what self-care looks like and how taking care of yourself physically helps you take care of yourself mentally, and the overlap that comes with ensuring your whole self is taken care of. The first few lessons are focused on helping to build a relationship between the participants and the facilitators. But then we get into the meat and potatoes of everything. We talk about the difference between love and attraction, and how while attraction might feel like love, it's not, because you do not need to know anything about someone to be attracted to them. During this lesson, we also talk about sexuality and gender expressions. I have had students who had no idea about certain aspects of gender and sexuality, and I've had students who have been very informed. We talk about the the different types of relationships that you have in your life and how we should interact differently with people depending on the type of relationship we have. Like how we would not react to a stranger in the same way we do a family member, a friend, or a helper. Emphasizing things like while you might hug a friend or a romantic partner, you do not want to hug, say, a bus driver. We also talk about boundaries during this lesson and how they are different for everyone in our lives, and that is okay. While we might be comfortable hugging one family member, we might not be comfortable hugging another family member. We discuss how to say no and that it's always okay to say no when you feel uncomfortable. During the class, we talk about consent and who can give consent and who cannot give consent. This includes discussing things like family members cannot consent with one another if there is a large age gap, especially if one of the individuals is under 18. There cannot be consent if bribes or tricks are used. There cannot be consent. And if an individual is on a substance or not awake, they cannot consent. During the class, we talk about being safe on the internet and how to ensure that you are not giving away too much information. Being safe about what you post and when you post it. We also talk about porn and when and where it is safe to watch. That while porn is completely okay to watch, we want to make sure that we do not believe that it is the reality of sex. We also talk about being careful with sharing pictures of ourselves naked and the implications of that. We talk about the signs of a healthy and unhealthy relationship, and along with that, dating abuse. The different ways to tell if someone is taking advantage of or abusing someone in a relationship. We go over the power and control wheel and the ways in which abuse goes in a cycle where the abuser will not just always be mean to the person they are abusing. There will be times when the abuser is kind or might even say they're going to change. We also talk about moving from friends to sweethearts, which is the exact wording of the lesson, and I think is very cute, which is a session designed to provide individuals who take the class with a little bit of a script on how to let someone know that they might like to date instead of just being friends. And I believe that was taken from the Elevate Us curriculum. We talk about sexual body parts, which is exactly what it sounds like. We go over the anatomy of a vulva and a womb and the anatomy of a penis. I have had students who knew pretty much everything we went over and students who had no idea about the correct terms for their body parts. We talk about the difference between sexual reflexes, such as getting an erection, sexual actions like sexting, and sexual contact, which could mean fondling another person. There is an emphasis in this class that just because you have a sexual reflex does not mean that you have to act on it or do anything about it. We also talk about unplanned pregnancies and STIs, where we go over an extensive list of contraceptives and STI preventatives, some of which I did not even know about when I started teaching the class. And I do consider myself to be pretty well versed in safe sex. During this lesson, we talk about the responsibilities of being a parent and how you want to make sure that you are emotionally and financially ready to take on such a big responsibility. We talk about sexual violence and the ways in which it can look different than what the media portrays. We talk about how someone tricking or bribing someone else into sexual acts is a type of sexual violence. We also talk about how saying no, not saying no, does not mean that you said yes. That enthusiastic, informed consent is the goal, and that just because you said yes one time or even initially does not mean that you cannot change your mind. This specific lesson does lead to some disclosures from students about past sexual abuse. But I would say that there are disclosures of sexual assault that happen at other times during the course of the class as well. I have had them happen at many different points throughout teaching the course. And in an attempt to end on a more positive note, our last class is about empowerment, a reminder that you always have the power to and can always say no. I would say that when I teach the class, there's usually anywhere. I've had classes that are just one student, and I've had classes that are upwards of 6. And I would say that I usually get at least one disclosure about a sexual assault from a student throughout the course of teaching the class. And I was wondering how everyone thought. So, my question for you: how do you think you should respond to a self-disclosure in a trauma-informed way? And I'll wait for answers. Tell the person that you are sorry that happened to them. Yeah. I couldn't hear the question. Okay, I can repeat it. Sorry. Um, how do you think you should respond to a self-disclosure about a sexual assault in a trauma-informed way? Um, let them know that help and support is available. Yeah, that's always a good thing to do. Let them know if you are a mandated reporter, which is something that I do at the beginning of every class. Listen to them and let them know there is help for them. Listening is a big one. I feel like a lot of times people forget about how much listening can do. Let them know it's not their fault. Yeah, that's a good one. As Christine mentioned, ensure that there is support offered. Yeah. I think even sometimes just sitting with the person and asking them what they want to do, and then potentially Googling with them to figure out what resources are around you, even if you don't know. Like, I'm pretty versed in the resources in Grand Rapids, but that's just because of the nature of the work I do. Um, um, provide a warm handoff if someone wants to explore services at local victim services. Yeah. Emphasize you are there for them, how/what support is available for them, and that they are not at fault and have a right to their body. Yes. Yeah. At the YWCA that I work at in West Michigan, we have a nurse examiner program, which is for survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence, where they can get an exam done to collect evidence. And we always try very hard to make sure that the person feels agency over their own body during that situation, because it can be re-traumatizing. So letting everyone know that they have a choice with what we do and how. Um, continuing to follow up periodically. Some folks may not want to make a decision on accessing this victim services right away, which is really true, and can be important to just keep in the back of your mind, trying not to push what you think they should do on them because it is their situation. Just because maybe you are like, I think they should report this, doesn't mean that that's what they want to do. And I think keeping in mind what decisions they have made, especially after sexual assault where their agency was totally taken away from them, ensuring that agency is part of the situation is really important. All right. So, as we talked about with self-disclosures, self-disclosures are one of the reasons that I think it's important to have two facilitators when presenting leave. That way, if a student discloses and is having a hard time, they can get some one-on-one attention while someone else can stay with the rest of the students. There's one more response, sorry. Yeah, Christine says, our informed response can help victims take back their power. Yes, which is very true. There are a couple of other reasons that I think it's important to have more than one facilitator during leave. And one of them is to ensure that the students can find some agency in the fact that one of the facilitators also has an intellectual or developmental disability. Because if the peer facilitator has the lived experience of having an IDD, while even if not the exact same situation, I think puts them in a better position to understand the material from the student's perspective. So if I am teaching the course, I might not understand as intrinsically as one of my peer facilitators, which has definitely happened before. While teaching, they have provided me with a perspective that I had not thought of before. And that's why I really appreciate them. Okay, so that is the end of my presentation. Does anyone have any questions? I will do my best to answer them.
Yes, this is Christine, and I had so far one comment and one question. One of the comments was that a lot of people, regardless of disability status, are introduced to sex at a very young age, even before they may receive formal sex education information. So just pointing that out. And then can you talk a little bit more about the importance of peer facilitators and how you help prepare them to co-facilitate classes?
Oh, that is such a good question. So the second half of it, I'm not really sure because both of my peer facilitators peer facilitated long before I was there. Like I said, Brooke has been peer facilitating, I think it's going on 6 years now. And then my other peer facilitator, Stacy, has been doing it for 3 or 4. So both of them truly know so much more about facilitating this class than I could ever hope to. They have a lot more experience than me. So I'm not sure how you go about preparing them for it. I know with Brooke, she took the class. She was like one of the very first people to take the class, and I think just became really interested in the subject matter. Like I said, she's very active in the disability community in Grand Rapids, and so she just has like a lot of, I think she just wanted another way to be active. And Stacy loves teaching the course and often brings up points, like I said, that I hadn't even thought of. If I had to get a new one, I am not really sure how I would prepare them. And I hope that they both continue to stay with me. But I think I think it helps having them take the class first because both of them did take the class before they taught the class. So you get that perspective of being a student. And I think enthusiasm, like caring a lot about the subject matter and wanting to teach other people about it, is also really important. Like they're both really, you know, they really wanted to do it. And then from there, it's just kind of, I don't know. I'm a big fan of learning as you go. So, like, if you pull them in when they feel comfortable, maybe they just sit in and watch for the first couple of lessons. And then after that, you have them co-facilitate with you. And I forgot what the first part of your question was. I am so sorry.
This is Christine again, and you did answer it about the importance of peer facilitators. And this is an opportunity for our providers who are joining us today to consider, as you are implementing or continuing to implement the healthy relationships and sexuality education in your agencies and organizations, that perhaps you have self-advocates co-teach along with you. And that really does give it's about shared power, and that we are providing equality in what we are doing. Another comment that I had was making sure that if people are using communication devices, that you are including on those communication devices things like penis and vagina and vulva and breasts, so that people can communicate if someone is trying to hurt them or if someone has hurt them. It is important, this commenter says, to give people the information and the language to be able to communicate about their bodies. And so I thank the person who shared that information. Here's another one. How important is it to know the victim services in your area, to have those connections?
I think it, especially if you work in a profession where you come across situations where someone might be self-disclosing, or really in general, while I do think it is important to know the services around you, and I think that it can lend a lot of like just immediately answering the question, I also feel like Google is a thing and does exist, and hopefully you can Google. And so maybe if you don't know it, like, yes, knowing knowledge is power. Yes, we always want to know things. But if you don't know it, I think there's also some agency in searching with the person. Like, I find a lot of like just saying, I'm not sure about that, and then going to a computer with them and just trying to figure it out with them helps people feel like they're a part of the process. And I think that can be very empowering. So I don't know. I'm a big fan of yes, knowing, but if you don't know, just admitting it and working together.
Wonderful. Here's another comment, and it comes with a question. Many providers in Illinois are using a variety of different curriculums and resources to meet the requirement for providing healthy relationship and sexuality education and resources. Is it a good idea to invite representatives from the local victim services to speak to participants, whether that is from the local sexual assault center or the local domestic violence center?
I feel like it's always a good idea, even if they don't necessarily provide any new information to the people. So, like, maybe your participants or clients or what have you already know the information that the person is bringing to you because you've gone over it. It can make it feel a little less intimidating to go to that place and seek services if the person feels like they already know someone that works there. Even if that's not the person that ends up working with them, I feel like it helps break that barrier a little bit and makes them feel a little more comfortable with what's happening.
Okay, thank you for that. And I'm looking at the chat. If anybody has any questions or comments, we have a couple more moments that we are together. Go ahead and type those in. You could either type it in and everybody can see it, or you can certainly just send it to myself or to Savannah. Here's a question for the Weave program in Michigan.
Yeah.
Are parents and guardians informed, or do they have to approve of their individual participating?
So, yes. If the individual has someone that is a guardian over them, be it a parent or state guardian, we do have to get permission from them. I have not had to do this myself because usually people just reach out, but I think I could be persuasive enough to convince a parent or guardian that was maybe a little on the fence to allow their student to participate. That does not mean that occasionally it has happened in the past, at least. I know from Brooke and Stacy, where once we get to some of the topics like body parts, that some students are not then pulled out by their parent or guardian because they feel uncomfortable with the topic, but at least they have some knowledge by that point. It can be difficult, but just because of the way the system functions, I cannot provide education without parent or guardian approval if that is something that they have.
Okay. And here's another question that came through to me. With the Weave program, you mentioned students. How old or at what age does the Weave program start?
So I believe the youngest participant I could have would be 16. I have had occasionally schools will reach out to me or like individual teachers, and I have to be like, does your school board approve this? Because I cannot just do this without school board approval. Which is not to say that I would not be willing to like make the program accessible to a younger audience. That is just what we work with right now because school boards are what they are.
And Weave is one of the curriculum that are listed for the Illinois Sex Ed as approved curriculum. It doesn't cover everything that the law is requiring, but it covers some of them. Do you know when that curriculum will be available for folks to check out?
I am trying so hard right now. I don't have the correct permissions and we cannot figure out who has the correct permissions and able to make it available. So I'm workshopping it with my boss right now. Hopefully soon.
Hopefully, so coming soon, you'll be able to access the new and improved Weave curriculum. So we ask folks to just continue checking back on the Illinois Sex Ed curriculum webpage.
Also, if you reach out to me individually, and I can throw my email in the chat.
Oh, perfect. Yes.
I can do my best to try and just send it to you. No, I did that wrong. Ignore that one. Okay.
We're going to stay at the YYWCA.
Yeah.
We're putting an extra Y in that song.
I have a fun little keyboard, but it trips me up sometimes.
Well, this is Christine. We have reached the end of our time together. On behalf of the Illinois Self-Advocacy Alliance and everyone who has joined today, thank you, Savannah, for your time, your experience, and your expertise in sharing about the Weave program.
Thank you for letting me do so.
All right. Thank you all. Please stay safe, stay warm. Take care. Bye-bye.